Hey, welcome back to the Proverbs Finance podcast. I'm super excited about today's episode because we're going to talk about a guy who literally broke the system. And no, it's not some financial market guru, not some tech billionaire. It's someone who lived almost 3,000 years ago and managed to accumulate a fortune so absurd that it would make Jeff Bezos look like an intern. If you're new here, welcome. Here at Proverbs Finance, we dive deep into ancient wisdom to extract practical principles of wealth and prosperity that work in the real world. Today, right now. And if you're already part of the family, you know we don't just stick to theory, we get to the heart of the matter. So let's go. Imagine this. You wake up one day and discover you have direct access to the financial secrets of the richest man who ever walked this planet. I'm not talking about the richest of his time, I'm talking about the richest in all of human history. Solomon, this guy had so much gold that silver literally lost its value in his kingdom. That's right, you heard correctly. Silver became common stuff like aluminum today. Historians calculate that converting to current values, his fortune would easily reach $2 trillion. To give you an idea, that's more money than Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates combined have accumulated in their entire lives. But here's the kicker, and this is what makes this story really interesting for us. Solomon didn't win all of this in the lottery. He didn't inherit $2 trillion from his father. Yes, he was the son of King David. He had privilege, he had structure, but the fortune he built was a direct result of strategic choices and very well-defined principles that he applied consistently. And the craziest part, he documented all of it. He left it recorded in proverbs, in writings, in teachings that have crossed millennia. And look how interesting this is. When God appeared to Solomon right at the beginning of his reign and said, ask for whatever you want, the guy didn't ask for money. He asked for wisdom. He asked for discernment to govern well, to make right decisions. And it was this choice, this prioritization of wisdom over immediate wealth that triggered everything, because wealth came as a natural consequence of applied wisdom. This is something we forget way too much in today's world. Everyone wants the result, but nobody wants to develop the capacity to generate the result. Everyone wants to be rich, but few people want to be wise. Solomon flipped this logic. He went after the capacity first, and the result came in an avalanche. And it wasn't just material wealth either. The guy had peace in the kingdom, had international respect, had distributed prosperity. The whole thing worked on all levels. So let's break down the principles this man used. Because I guarantee you one thing, if you apply even half of what we're going to talk about here, today your financial life is going to take a turn. I'm not promising you'll become a billionaire tomorrow, but I'm telling you these principles are solid as rock. The first principle that Solomon applied religiously was what I call applied wisdom is worth more than raw gold. He literally said this in his writings, that it was better to acquire wisdom than gold, better to acquire intelligence than silver. And it wasn't motivational coach talk, it was deep conviction based on concrete results. Think about it. Today we see a lot of people chasing the next trend, the next coin that's going to explode, the next get-rich-quick scheme. But how many of these people are really investing in developing the ability to evaluate opportunities? How many are truly studying how economics works, how management works, how human psychology works? Solomon understood that if you have wisdom, you create wealth. But if you only have wealth without wisdom, it's just a matter of time until you lose everything. And there's modern data that proves this. Studies show that most people who win the lottery return to their original financial state, or worse, within a few years. Why? Because money in the hands of someone who doesn't have the wisdom to manage it is like water slipping through your fingers. Solomon knew this 3,000 years ago. So he invested heavily in knowledge. The guy studied botany, zoology, architecture, engineering, diplomacy, anything you can imagine. He wasn't just an administrator sitting on the throne signing papers. He was a polymath. And this breadth of knowledge allowed him to see connections and opportunities that other people didn't see. When he set up his trade routes, it wasn't guesswork. It was strategy based on deep understanding of geography, international politics, logistics. Solomon's second principle was build systems, not depend on effort. And this is revolutionary. Most people think wealth comes from working more, from putting in more hours, from killing yourself working. Solomon thought differently. He understood that real wealth comes from creating structures that work without you being there all the time, controlling every detail. Look at what he did. The guy established automatic trade routes. He set up a fleet of ships that went to Tarshish and came back every 3 years, bringing gold, silver, ivory, monkeys, peacocks. Meanwhile, he was handling 1,000 other things. The ships worked for him. The system generated wealth while he slept. Does this sound familiar? It's exactly the concept of passive income that everyone talks about today, except Solomon was already doing this in the year 900-something before Christ. He also created strategic partnerships. The most famous was with Hiram. King of Tyre, Hiram had the naval technology and experienced sailors. Solomon had the resources and access to certain routes. Instead of trying to do everything alone, he split the pie and multiplied the results. This is abundance thinking, not scarcity. And look how interesting. This partnership lasted decades and enriched both kingdoms. Another system he set up was intelligent taxation. It wasn't that confiscatory thing that breaks the people. It was a system where everyone contributed proportionally and in return received infrastructure, security, stability. The result? Commerce flourishing, people prospering, and consequently, more revenue coming in. He understood that you don't get rich crushing those who produce. You get rich creating conditions for everyone to produce more. The third principle is about reputation as a financial asset. And this is something Solomon took extremely seriously. His fame spread so far that queens traveled for months just to meet the guy and see if it was all that. The Queen of Sheba, for example, made an insane journey crossing deserts just to test his wisdom with difficult questions. And when she saw the whole operation working, she was impressed to the point of giving him absurd gifts. We're talking tons of gold, rare spices, precious stones. But pay attention to what's happening here. Solomon's reputation wasn't just bringing praise and admiration, it was literally bringing caravans of wealth, because people wanted to associate with him, wanted to do business with him, wanted to learn from him. And this generated constant flow of resources, opportunities, strategic alliances. Today we call this personal branding, market authority. But the logic is exactly the same. When you build a solid reputation for competence, integrity, results, opportunities come to you. You stop chasing and start selecting. Solomon didn't need to go out selling his services. Kings and queens came knocking on the door, offering gold just to have access to his knowledge. And there's a crucial detail in all this. His reputation wasn't based on empty marketing. It was based on real delivery. The guy solved complex problems, made wise decisions, created genuine value. That's why the reputation sustained itself and multiplied. This is one of the secrets many people skip today. They want the fame without the foundation. It doesn't work long term. The fourth principle Solomon mastered was intelligent diversification. The guy didn't put all his eggs in one basket. He had income coming from taxes, from maritime trade, from land trade, from tributes, from vassal kingdoms, from diplomatic gifts, from construction projects, from exporting horses and war chariots. It was a diversified portfolio before the word portfolio even existed. And look at the insight. Each of these income sources had its own cycle, its own risk. If one trade route had problems, the others kept working. If a harvest was bad in a certain region, maritime trade compensated. He instinctively understood what modern investors took centuries to formalize in theory. Don't depend on a single source of income. Don't depend on a single market. Don't depend on a single skill. There's a proverb of his that says exactly this, that talks about dividing your portions into 7 or even 8 parts, because you don't know what disaster may come upon the land. It's literally a risk management manual written 3,000 years ago. The guy was talking about hedging, about protection against black swans, about financial resilience in language anyone could understand. And he applied this not only in terms of income sources, but also in terms of physical investments. He built in several different cities. He had agricultural projects, urban projects, infrastructure projects. If one went wrong, 10 others were working. This created a solid foundation that was very hard to knock down, and that's exactly why the kingdom prospered so much during his reign. The fifth principle is something that goes against everything you see out there today. Solomon understood that strategic generosity multiplies wealth. And when I say strategic generosity, I'm not talking about distributing money to everyone without criteria. I'm talking about sowing intentionally, knowing you're going to reap multiplied. Solomon invested heavily in the people around him. He had a huge team of officials, administrators, counselors, and he didn't pay poorly. The guy compensated well, created conditions for these people to prosper. Why? Because he knew that well-cared-for people work better, think better, deliver more. It's the opposite of the exploitation mentality. It's the investment in human capital mentality. And there's that famous episode of the two mothers disputing the baby. Solomon could have resolved that anyway, bureaucratically, quickly. But he invested time, invested attention, invested wisdom in that situation. And the result? The story spread. His reputation as a wise and just judge reached every known corner. That generated massive trust in his system. And trust, my friend, is the basis of any prosperous economy. He was also generous with neighboring nations. He made alliances, offered help, shared technology. And this wasn't dumb charity, this was diplomatic investment. Because when you help other kingdoms prosper, you create trading partners, you create regional stability, you reduce the chance of conflicts that always cost dearly. He transformed potential enemies into commercial allies. That's strategic genius. Solomon's sixth principle was excellence in everything he touched, and this wasn't paralyzing perfectionism. It was a quality standard that became his trademark. When he decided to build the temple, he didn't half-ass it. He imported the best materials, hired the best craftsmen, invested years in the project. The result was a work so impressive that it became a world reference for centuries. And pay attention to the return on this. That temple put Jerusalem on the map like never before. It became a pilgrimage destination, became a trade center, became a symbol of power and sophistication. The investment in excellence returned multiplied in ways you couldn't even calculate directly. Religious tourism, political prestige, cultural influence, all of this generated gigantic indirect economic flows. And he applied this same standard to everything. His palaces, the fortifications, the fleet of ships, even the horse stables were built with excellence. This created a culture of quality that permeated the entire kingdom. People knew that if something had Solomon's seal, it was guaranteed high quality. This is branding at the deepest level possible. Today we see a lot of this mentality in Steve Jobs, in Elon Musk, in these guys obsessed with excellence. They understand that in the long run, quality always beats quantity. Always. You can sell cheap crap in the short term and make quick money. But if you want to build something that lasts, something that really prospers over decades, you need excellence. Solomon knew this viscerally. The seventh principle is timing and strategic patience. Solomon understood there's a right time for everything. He wrote that famous text about a time to plant, a time to harvest, a time to build, a time to tear down. And this wasn't abstract philosophy, it was an operational manual for how he ran business. When he took over the kingdom, he didn't go making crazy changes right away. He consolidated power first, strengthened alliances, stabilized the economy. Only after the foundation was solid did he move on to the grandiose projects. This sequence matters a lot. Many people want to skip steps, want immediate results, and end up building on quicksand. His construction projects took years. The temple took 7 years. His palace took 13. He wasn't in a dumb hurry. He knew that excellence takes time, that solid foundations take time, that true relationships take time. But he also knew that when you do it right, the result lasts generations. And there's another aspect of timing that's brilliant. Solomon called a period of regional peace. There weren't major wars happening. He took advantage of this window to focus on trade, on construction, on development. He didn't waste resources on unnecessary conflicts. He read the historical moment and adjusted the strategy. This is situational intelligence at the highest level, knowing when to hit the accelerator and when to hold back, knowing when to risk and when to consolidate. This made a gigantic difference in the results he achieved. The eighth principle was leverage through exclusive knowledge. Solomon had access to information that no one else had. He studied plants from Lebanon to desert plants. He knew animal behavior. He understood metallurgy, advanced architecture. And this exclusive knowledge translated into real competitive advantage. For example, the copper mines he exploited in Eziongeber. He had smelting and metallurgy knowledge that was cutting edge for the time. This allowed him to produce bronze and copper objects of superior quality and sell them with huge margins. It wasn't just about having access to the raw resource, it was about knowing how to process better than any competitor, same with the trade routes. He had detailed geographic knowledge, knew the monsoon cycles, knew the safe ports, had mapped the ocean currents. This gave him an absurd advantage over other traders. While others risked and lost ships, his fleets arrived consistently. And he protected this knowledge too. He didn't go spreading all the secrets to just anyone. He had circles of trust, had internal learning systems. He trained people within his kingdom to keep that expertise functioning. This is what tech companies do today with intellectual property, with patents, with proprietary know-how. Solomon was already doing knowledge management as a strategic asset millennia ago. And there's an important detail here. He didn't stay stuck in the knowledge he already had. The guy was genuinely curious. When the Queen of Sheba came to visit him, he didn't just answer her questions, he must have asked a ton of questions back. He learned about her kingdom, about the southern routes, about different spices. Each interaction was an opportunity to expand his database. So let's recap what we've seen here. Solomon built the greatest fortune in human history following principles that seemed simple, but that required discipline and long-term vision. He prioritized wisdom over immediate wealth. He built systems instead of depending only on effort. He transformed reputation into a financial asset. He diversified intelligently. He used generosity strategically. He operated with excellence in everything. He respected timing and had patience. And he leveraged exclusive knowledge as competitive advantage. Now the question that remains is, what are you going to do with this? Because look, these principles aren't secrets locked away. They've been available for 3,000 years. The difference between those who prosper and those who don't isn't lack of access to information. It's lack of consistent application. Solomon had a phrase that I think sums it all up. He said that the ant, without having a chief or supervisor, prepares its food in summer and gathers its provisions at harvest. It's about doing the right thing, even when no one's watching. It's about having discipline, even when there's no external pressure. It's about thinking long-term, even when the short-term is tight. The truth is that prosperity principles are timeless. Context changes, technology changes, markets change, but fundamentals remain. And if you implement even 2 or 3 of these principles we talked about here today, consistently over the next 12 months, I guarantee you'll see tangible results in your financial life. So that's it, folks. I hope you got real value from this episode. If you enjoyed it, leave that like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and share with someone who needs to hear this. And tell me in the comments, which of these principles made the most sense to you? Which one do you already apply, and which one are you going to start applying from now on? See you in the next episode of Proverbs Finance Podcast. Until then, stay well and prosper with wisdom.